Alrighty, I'm about to leave the domicile to embark on an intrepid expedition to the park just over there. I am looking for the sow thistle that I also often call the fowl thistle. The fowl thistle. The fowl. The fowl thistle. Sow thistle can also be called common sow thistle and puha to the Maoris of New Zealand, although puha in New Zealand is probably Sonchus kirkii, whereas this one here I think is Sonchus oleraceus. The Sonchus genus, Sonchus meaning hollow stem, is from the family Asteraceae, which is one of the plant kingdom's biggest families. It has 1900 genera. It's the daisy family, or also known as the sunflower family. The sow thistle's in the dandelion tribe, which is called Cichoriae. It's a very hard word to say. Just because you're interested in weeds doesn't mean you need to suddenly speak Latin, by the way, but it is good to have a little bit of understanding about it so that you can differentiate some of the species. There are practical reasons for that, like not poisoning yourself. That's one that I like. The sow thistle, so originally from around Europe, Africa region, spreading into Asia and now naturalised all over the world, is an annual, a biennial, or can be a perennial. Around here it seems to be an annual. Something that I notice is that it gets this mildew. It's subject to this disease which tends to overpower it and kill it in the end. I have heard that if you are to garden this in your own garden, if you are that kind of unmitigated misanthropic weirdo that I am, if you take off the lower leaves like that, you can control the mildew a little bit. If you snap the hollow stem of a sow thistle, you find that there's a milky sap inside, which is why it's also called milk thistle. So let's talk about the leaves and how to recognise them. The leaves on this plant is a very interesting thing. The first thing to know is that they're very variable between species, but just between individual plants, even that might be right next to each other, and also within the same plant. As you can see, that leaf there doesn't look a lot like that leaf there. So most of the leaves have these heart-shaped or arrow-shaped terminal lobes, as you can see there. And then down through the centre they have these arrow-shaped leaflets coming off them. That's most of the leaves to some extent, with many variations. And they also have these serrated leaf margins. So they're quite sort of spiny, but they're pretty soft on this species. As you can see up here, this is a very different leaf. Has what's known as auricles. So they're sort of like ears that clasp the stem. So that's something to look out for. And those are usually higher up the plant. As you can see down low on the stem, they don't have auricles at all. The leaves are also smooth underneath. Speaking of leaf variations, I've just walked around the corner, not far from where I was before, and found another stand of sow thistles, or Sonchus species, that have a very different leaf presentation. Look at the terminal lobe of this leaf. It is not heart-shaped, it is very long and pointed. So these are sort of variations you might see, and you might think, that's not a sow thistle. It is a sow thistle, it is a variation, possibly a different species. The beautiful flower heads of the sow thistle have multiple flowers extending from a single point. The flowers themselves are much like dandelion or cat's ears. They're little yellow daisy-shaped things. What I find with this plant is that the flowers are more often closed. I'm not sure why that is. Here's a beautiful example of the sow thistle flowers actually out and about. As you can see, they are much like dandelions. The seed heads of the Sonchus plants are much like dandelion, not as orb-shaped, but they still set their seeds out in these fluffy, parachuted seeds that float on the wind and just propagate everywhere. Look at this little dwarfed specimen growing up out of the bluestone. She's a very purply little thing. Often sow thistles do have a purplish hue, often on the stem, and often as they get older. Don't these weeds just teach us about adaptability and resilience? Beautiful things. Foul thistle. The foul thistle. The foul. The foul thistle.